It's recording right now.
Good evening, everyone. We are proceeding with the Today Help session on the beautiful sentiment analysis assignment. Let me tell you, this is a culmination of everything you have studied up to here. And you will have the opportunity to apply all of this in a true data analytic, data science fashion, solving a real problem, which is very relevant to the today many different organizations. Sentiment analysis is a point of interest if many businesses, governmental, almost anyone, let's put it this way, starting with your HR department, with marketing to understand consumer sentiment, and going on and on and on with all security governmental agency to understand the sentiment of people exchanging information in the social network, to detect some dangerous threat, and so on and on and on. So the application is clear. I think everyone can evaluate the value, the importance of this kind of problem. And so what we are doing here is we study by apply what we have studied to solve problem, and the problem is sentiment analysis. And here we have different pieces coming together, which is the beautiful and of course challenging part. By one hand, you start with the simple text analysis, but you have to culminate not with the simple text analysis you started in 6:30. You have to evolve to what is the natural language understanding linguistics, which is behind the natural language understanding, and going even more in depth is in very specific term of natural language understanding to understand the nuance of the sentiment through writing and speaking language. We're talking about natural language. So understand the sentiment through understanding natural language. So this is by one hand what we are using to solve this problem. So evolving of all this knowledge all together. On the other hand, you need, you can understand to solve kind of problem like this, you would need a little bit more special technology. And here we are. Fortunately, we have access to something which is not simple database. We have access to what is DB2 on cloud, which is provided as a service, and you have the opportunity not only to do SQL in database, you can do in-memory analytics. And as you know by the lecture and the material uploaded in the classroom, when you listen to in-memory analytics, this should be very expensive because we're talking about big data. Can you imagine all this big data stored in memory? Logically, this should be quite expensive. So we have access to a very expensive technology. Well, not totally true. Let's put it this way. Yes, the technology is very unique. What is DB2 in memory analytics, but don't think physically all this data, all this big data, you will fit in memory and then you analyze. DB2 has very suitable, let's say, very nice technology using the advancement of computer science. So you don't have to store everything in memory. You will use different computer science mechanism like advanced prefetching, filtering, so decompression. So you don't have to store all the data in memory. But still you can do analysis in real time. So technology like this is the unique blue technology which IBM used, their proprietary technology, but AWS has similar product, let's put it this way, and most cloud provider today, the big one, they have something similar. Of course, each of them has its proprietary product. So in this specific thing, we work portion of the technology is proprietary. As you can understand, most of the things we have been using are open source. Spark is open source, Hadoop is open source, HBase, all this technology, Apache Spark, they are open source technology. Here we are coming to something small chunk, which will help us solve the problem. And at this point in life, any of the provider, they have something like this, but each of them is proprietary. So DB2 is proprietary. So we are going to use it, whatever is available. And this is the state of the art today. So we are on top of the state of the art. The beautiful thing of DB2 is that it's not just a database where you can do SQL. We have integrated environment, cloud environment to load data, to search the data, but also to do analysis in this integrated environment with RStudio integrated in the cloud provided DB2. This is something quite advanced. And let's put it this way, it's just like you get honey to the data scientist. This is, you give him everything. Everything is all together, integrated in the cloud. You just go and you just do your analysis. So, Elena, can you put the next slide, please? The other important thing is that in addition to all this, the embedded R environment provides you with different, let's say, option of analysis.
The right slide? Is it the right slide? Okay.
The next one.
Oh, the next number 7. Okay, so
yes. So what is integrated is different predictive modeling through the RStudio. So you, as a data analyst, you have in the finger of your hand all these resources. You can use any of these algorithms and everything is embedded in the cloud. So you have to learn and use this technology, and we understand that all this integration of different pieces make this challenging, but since most of the things you already have studied are all these algorithms, you have studied text analysis. So bringing together all these things with a little bit more is what is the purpose of this assignment, to get you advancing in your career, getting better prepared for the jobs coming, for the job which employer are offering and are looking for a professional which can do this stuff. So take the opportunity to learn all these things. Take this with open mind that you can make mistake, but it's very important that you follow the instruction very closely, because some of the mistakes, let's put it this way, are unrepairable. When I say unrepairable, maybe you will have to wait 8 or 12 hours until you can restart again, because in cloud environment, this is not your personal computer. You have to think that the rules are different. Just you are very accustomed to work in your personal computer and you intuitively assume, oh, in the cloud is the same thing. Click here, click here. It's not the same. You have to be mindful what you are doing and then no bad consequences. So I'm just want to encourage you to take this with very open mind. It's challenging, but it's the most beautiful assignment you will have in this class and maybe in the whole program, because we are getting together, advancing, integrating different pieces all together. And that is the true data analyst, data scientist job. I mean, it's not single thing to do SQL or to do a decision tree on R. And so what? The beauty is to solve problem using different pieces of knowledge and technology. So with no more, I'm leaving you with Elena, which is going to give you very important advice, and hopefully you will follow them. So the work is going to go smoother. Elena.
Okay, so yes, I'm here. Anyway, Okay, so here was a list of things, common errors, and Elena already talked to you about some of the common errors, right? Well, this is just for you. Sometimes you're not sure where to put the questions, and I realize sometimes it's hard to tell if the question is more like requirements related or if it's more specific about the assignment. But I'll tell you that TAs know what the assignment is, okay? Because we need to help in light of the assignment. So, okay. But in general, if you have issues with R, with SQL especially, right? R SQL, submit the Salesforce case, but please don't wait until the end because, you know, when you're nervous, you start thinking and things happen, all right? Now, capacity hours, all of you should have them reset at the beginning of this month. Your hours should have been reset to 50. Now, DB2 does not consume hours, just RStudio. Just remember that DB2 does not use up the hours. So that's the reason you have a lot of ungraded SQL exercises and an opportunity to practice without worrying about running out of hours. How does it sound? Now, so please do not put any tickets to IBM. No, seriously. We had a student who submitted code errors to IBM. Please don't do it. It's embarrassing, etc. Do not cancel your IBM Cloud account, and please do not put your credit card, all right? And do not put your friend's credit card either. Okay, do not update the R version in the environment. Do not add any more one instance of DB2. Actually, now the system won't let you do that. Do not install any R packages without checking with me. Well, because of the versions compatibility, let's say right now on the desktop version is 4 something, but on the cloud it's 3.63. So just remember that the cloud version of the package is not the same as the desktop studio, okay? So no, there is a compatibility issues and also dependencies. I don't want you to not finish the assignment due to corruption of the libraries and etc. Okay, now here you have to be careful when you try to open RStudio in multiple browser tabs. Well, although it may or may not let you, but sometimes if it does let you, you might end up consuming the hours twice. Okay, now here when you're loading the data, well, usually it should not take that long, but please avoid stopping, just let it finish. Well, you started loading and you realize, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to change this column width. Well, let it finish. When it's finished, go and drop the table. And I'll show you what I mean by drop the table, right? And restart. But please don't try to click browser's back button to stop things, you know, because you're starting another process, right? To stop something, it's another process that starts and you may have problem. Here, this is a sad story. Please do not put your SQL code into the Microsoft Word because it introduces some special characters and I do remember helping students fixing it or almost rewriting it from scratch on a night when the assignment was due. This is sad. So Microsoft quote is an example as well. Like see this quote here. If it hits the SQL, you know, the code is not gonna work. And some of these characters you can't really see it with naked eye. Seriously. Okay. Now don't use the back button, use menus. And then also, this is important. If you accidentally close your browser and if you don't run the quit command to exit RStudio session, you won't be able to get into R for like 2 to 3 hours. One of your classmates reproduced that issue yesterday. I reproduced it a couple of weeks ago, I admit, okay? So sometimes things happen, you know, but if you do that, you will have to wait. You know, it is what it is. I don't have admin access to look for the orphan session and to kill it, you know. So just be careful. Well, at least it may let you get in eventually, but well, I had cases when a student could not get in for like a couple of days at least. Seriously. Okay, so, oh, there is more. Oops, now, I don't want you to spend hours on something, on debugging the same errors. That's where you have a submit Salesforce ticket lifeline, right? I'll help you if you need assistance. And this is important too. When you download the CSV file, please do not open it. And in the video on how to load data, I showed you how to download the CSV file without opening. This is important because if a file is open for a fraction of a second, the data gets corrupted. Well, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it did not happen with a couple versions down of DB2, but it does happen now. Okay, it just does not, the date format is corrupted and it just refuses to recognize the dates. Okay, I talked about this. Well, this is another big picture of the whole assignment, and you might be doing similar project at the workspace as well. So you have a data set, right? You get description. You're gonna define the business problem. What exactly you're trying to solve, right? For example, the the data set that I'm gonna show you today is gonna be the hotel reviews. You're gonna be looking at the polarity of the posts of the post of the hotel of the review, right? Now you're gonna load the data, right? But there are some adjustments because the load consists of several steps. You specify the source, right? The target, and then summary adjustments that you need to make, right? And then you're gonna check the log for errors. There should be no errors and warnings. You should be saying thank you, Yelena, because what I did was I provided to you the update that you need to make, right? You need to make some adjust some columns because I did some testing on my end, right? And I did the debugging for you and I just gave you the solution. In real life, you will be the one who will debug those warnings, okay? Now, you're gonna have to submit the load status screenshot, right? Then you're gonna need to validate the load programmatically. Programmatically means what? Writing the code, right? You want to check the table metadata, make sure the fields have correct data types, right? Uh, then, of course, the number of columns should match the number of columns in CSV file. There should not be any extra columns. There should not be any missing columns, right? Then you're going to be writing some meaningful queries to analyze data, right? And I'm going to show you some advanced stuff tonight. Then you're going to load data into the R environment, analyze data in R, and you're going to interpret the findings. But one thing I need to tell you is this. DB2 was upgraded in the summer, and unfortunately, the latest version, well, usually if you took this course before last summer, you would have to use credentials from your service to connect to R. However, there was an update last summer that at the moment, the current R version in the environment, right, it's not compatible with current DB2 version. So for this reason, all of you are given my credentials because I still have a copy of an old version of DB2 service. So that's why you're given a script with credentials in it. If you were taking this course in the spring, that wouldn't have happened, okay? So you might be wondering why you're getting the R code with my credentials in it. It's because right now, unfortunately, current R version is incompatible with connecting directly to your account, okay? So please leave with it this semester. Okay, now we already talked about this, we're skipping this. Well, okay, here it is. If you delete your DB2 service instance, it's gonna be a big ouch. Please think twice before you do it, because you're gonna lose all your all data that you loaded. You would have to redo it. Okay. Well, there have been situations when I had to tell the student to do it, but please don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. If something happens that you really have to do it, then I'll be there and I'll help you. But please don't do this voluntarily. Do not delete the service, okay? Now, okay, we're going to use the hotel data today for today's examples. I did some troubleshooting on my end. You're gonna have a copy of the data after this session, but if you want to load the data to your account, these are the changes that you need to make to the in the defined step of the load. Remember, the load has several steps, right? You select the table where you select target table, select table where you want to load data. And this is a step where you edit, when you edit the column data type, you're gonna need to make these edits, right? So just keep this, you're gonna have this. This is a list of edits that you need to make to use today's data if you want to watch the recording and follow along. And we want to try some of the SQL code that I'm gonna give you tonight. But for all of these columns, you change the length, and one of the column, postal code, you want to change the data type to varchar and the width to 10. So here, this column where you'll be changing the data type in addition to the width. So this is just take it at face, because I did some troubleshooting on my end, and those are the changes that need to make to the load to work. Because basically what's going on is that when you load data into the table, the current version of DB2, it looks at, I don't know exact number, but the first X number of records, if you will. And it attempts to infer the data types. But you could have columns where you could have values like super large, right? And those large values might not be detected at the time when it tries to infer the data type. So when I first ran this data, when I first tried to upload this data on my own, it failed. It returned a lot of warnings, and I did the troubleshooting on my end. So you have this, okay? Same thing for assignment 3. You're gonna have in your assignment instructions, there is a little table where lists the column name and the length. And if that column is listed on that list, you need to modify the length, okay? There is a step where you load data and you need to modify the length for some of your fields. Okay, just remember that. And once you're done, you're gonna see something like this. This is a for hotel review table, right? So let me go into the thing here. Oops, there's a, okay, that's a, okay. Well, so here, that thing here, you go to the data, right? And I already loaded 2 tables, but suppose that I was in a hurry and I forgot to take the screenshot. This is where the stuff is that I was playing around with, right? So here it is. So this is the last successful load of my airline sentiment. And I loaded it today because one of the students had issues. So I wanted to make sure that it's still working, and yes, it is. Okay, so this is a hotel stuff. I opened it up. Well, and here I see the number of rows read, rows loaded, rows rejected. And also it's gonna give me the time, but well, the time could be in a different time zone, right? But well, it does not matter. But what matters is that you can tell how long it took to load the data. Like here, it's like what, maybe 6 minutes-ish, right? This is the number of records. And also you can see that if you want to look at the warnings, the no warnings. But usually when you, sometimes no warnings can be ignored, but when it reaches 1000 warnings, your load is gonna fail and you need to do some troubleshooting, okay? So I had to figure out what was wrong. Anyways, well, that's a step. See this, if you go back to here, data, right? So this is where load data is. You're gonna specify the source, right? So, well, I'm not gonna redo the load, but what I'm just saying is this step, right? And then the target, and then after you specify the target, next step would be define, right? And this is a step where you edit the column width, okay? It's very important. Please do yourself a favor. Don't miss that step. Because if you do, the load is not going to work. And if it does not work, this is what you need to do. And here comes some terminology. Okay, tables. Well, do you see this? Tables. What is this? This is your schema. Your schema is what? Your username, right? Here it is. Those are the tables in your schema. Just let's assume, I'm not gonna actually drop it, but let's assume I was loading this airline sentiment data and something went wrong, right? So what should I do with this? Look, I clicked on the table name, and over here, I would select drop, okay? Well, what does a drop command do? It will remove all data from the table if there is any, probably not. And it's gonna also remove the table structure. Yes, you need to drop the table because more likely what may have happened is that it inferred the data types incorrectly. It created the table, but then it was unable to load the data in the table because probably the detected width of the field is smaller than some of your values, number of characters in some of your values. So if it depends on how many occurrences it is. If the data set is small, if it happened only 5 times, then probably the value will be either skipped or truncated, right? And you're gonna see the warning. But the problem is if the number of warnings reaches certain threshold, your load is going to fail. So you would need to drop the table and try again. But important, drop the table. You cannot just attempt to reload because your table structure that was created is incorrect, okay? I don't want you to be running more advanced GBA stuff like alter table, alter, right, and change the column width. You could do that, but since we are not in a GBST program, for you it's easier is to just drop the table and to redo the load, okay? Because GBST folks, I would have told to run alter table command and to change the column width. You could do that. But for you, just drop and reload, okay? Now, another thing is, well, so that's a load status. Very important. You have to show the time, okay? Because it kind of like shows how long it took and etc. Okay, you always want to know how long things take. Now, well, programmatic load validation. What does it mean? The word programmatic itself means by doing what? Running the code. Important, I'm gonna give you SQL, right? For the SQL that you get, you're gonna need to change something. And what you need to change is your schema. So you're gonna copy this. This is your schema name, right? You're gonna copy this. Well, it might be better to get it from this interface, okay? You go to table, you're gonna copy this. This is your schema name, okay? This is your schema name, it's important. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the SQL. And I already pasted my code in here before this session. Well, I have these two queries in here where I'm querying, this is a data, you can call it data dictionary table. It stores data about the table, right? About table itself. So what you will do is over here, you're going to replace the schema name with your schema name, right? If you're going to take my code and if you're going to run it, you would have to replace your schema name with my schema name with your schema name, sorry. Okay, so you're going to go here, see this data, and this is where you get your schema name. Oh, so it's this. See this? I have to copy this one, Control C. Now I have to go to SQL, and I thought I did it already, but apparently it was not saved. I need to replace this, okay? This is what you're gonna do, right? And now I'm gonna do save. Well, what I did was, I did save the file here in this with the service, but what you should also do is take a copy of this, and you also want to keep a copy on your PC, right? You want to do this, wait, when I say save to client, it's gonna be saving it to your computer, okay? You want to keep a local copy of the code in your PC, or you can just take everything and copy paste. Because what happens if the assignment is due and service is down? You can't launch the service, right? Or what happens if something happened to your service? Well, you cannot rely on the code just be here. Please, 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 always keep copies. Always keep a copy in your PC, okay? For this as a tutorial assignment, you'll be doing the ungraded SQL code, right? So please keep a copy of all your code on your local PC, not just here. Here, what this is a comment, right? Instead of like hash mark, it's a dash dash in a SQL, and comment tells what your code does. Well, here, most of you know what this is doing. I'm selecting the number of rows from hotel table. That's one step of checking the load programmatically. I want to get the row count. I know that I have a row count in the load status, but I also want to do this, just to be safe, right? That SQL editor, you can run one query at a time as well. So if I do this and do run selected, it's just going to run this query for me. Well, this is a number of rows. So always double check this row count matches the row count in that screenshot. Okay. So now, well, and here this just gives you the information on a table name, who created the table, which is going to be your schema name, right? Well, when I run this query, it's just going to show me all tables that I have. I have two tables in this case. And well, this is me, right? And here, this is a time when I created the table. And this is a number of columns. That's it. I'm not asking you for any more. If you were in a DBST program, you would have looked at more stuff. But here, you just look at these columns, okay? And this is a columns metadata table. Here, I specifically said I want to look at this table called hotel review, and table creator is me, right? So let's run selected. So one thing to point out is that since IBM is another schema, it's another user, system user, right? And the system user has a sys columns table. You need to qualify the table name with a username, because this is the table owner, right? And notice that all metadata is stored in the uppercase. So here, table name is the uppercase, column names in the uppercase, and here table creators in uppercase, right? Because remember that in that pre-recorded video, I showed you where to get your username from credentials. And then when we got into SQL, I told you just in case, let's write down your username in the uppercase, and you're gonna need it in a query like this, right? Okay, so you've got the table name, table creator. Null is a very important column. It tells you if you're allowed to have a missing value in a column. So null means missing, right? There's no value. Nullable column, it means that it's allowed. It's allowed for the column to not have a value. As you may know, in a database, some columns are defined as not null, so you must have a value, right? Not in here, not in this case. And here is the length, so you want to make sure that whatever length you see here matches what you specified, matches the length that you specified when you define in the define page. When you created the table, remember the define page where you're asked to modify some of the columns, right? This length must match whatever you set up in there, okay? Well, if it does not, then you may have done something incorrectly, okay? So now let's see, let's go back. Well, yeah, okay. Well, this one is just showing you, well, sometimes if you know that you loaded the data correctly, well, no errors, the table is created correctly as it should be, which may not be the case for you most of the time, but in general, just know that when you reload the data into existing tables, there is an option to overwrite, or you may also append. It's just for your knowledge. But in your case, in most of your cases, you would want to drop the table and reload. Let's say this way to keep it simple, because you're in a data program, you're not in DBST program. So you're lucky, huh? Okay. Well, and this shows you how to drop. I put the screenshot today because there were changes to interface before. Okay. Now this one is how to do this programmatically. Well, here I need to tell you a little bit. When you run the truncate command, truncate table name, well, it's just gonna remove all the data from the table and reclaim the space, but this will not remove the table structure. Interview question. You're gonna get a question about the difference between delete, drop, and truncate. Delete deletes the data, the table structure stays in place, does not reclaim the space. Truncate, table structure stays in place, right? The data is removed, the space is reclaimed, okay? Drop, removes the data, removes table structure, okay? There are more differences, but you're not DBST, but anyway, sometimes delete can be undone because the entry gets written into the log, right? There is a log that tracks what changes were made to data, but don't worry about this, okay? Not for this class. Anyway, so just know that when you delete, you're just removing data. You're not removing the table structure. Drop removes the table structure. So when I say drop, you know what I'm talking about, right? When I tell you to drop the table in the ticket response, I'm talking to do this, okay? Now, vocabulary is important, right? So that's why I'm telling you this stuff. And this is how to drop the table programmatically. Drop table, and here you put the table name. You need to know how to do that because you're not always going to have this interface, okay? Now, well, here is just basically shows you how to return to the load history. If you forgot to take screenshot, well, now you can return. Versions ago, you could not return. If you forgot to take a screenshot, bad, you know. Now there is a way to return unless you deleted the history of the loads. Okay, now everybody's favorite topic, at least mine. Select statements. Why do we use select statements? We want to pull data from the table, right? This is a structure, those are the components of the select statement. Select specifies a delimited list of columns that we want to retrieve from one or more tables, right? You just specify what you want to select from. Here you specify the tables, right? And you might do the table join condition, right, in a from clause or in a where clause, but don't worry, you're not doing table joins right now, okay? Where clause is for filtering rows. For example, I want to list students who got a grade above 80%, something like that. So in the where clause, I would have a condition where assignment 2 grade is greater than 80%, something like that, right? So where clause allows me to filter rows. Group by, you specify the columns that you want to do use in your that you want to do the summary. The columns that you want to summarize the data by. Like for example, I want to know the average grade on each assignment, right? In each session. So I'm going to be grouping my data 650 students by what? By assignment number and by session, right? And then in the select clause, I'm going to list the assignment name and the session and then the average grade, right? But suppose that if I want to list only the average assignment grade, right, that is above 90, I want to know which assignment grade have an average grade above 90, right? So here I'm not filtering individual students, I'm filtering the groups, right? Having clause, we use having clause to filter the groups, okay? Not the individual rows. I don't care who got more than 90% on a assignment. I care which assignments have the average grade above 90%. So see that? I would have to calculate the average grade for each assignment, and then I would have to throw out the assignments. See what I'm saying? That's a difference between where and having clause, okay? Order by is for sorting the output, but remember this. Each select statement must have at least select and from clause, right? You have to specify what you're selecting and from. If you believe that you can have a select statement with just the select clause, I would like to see the code. Okay, I would like to have the working code where if you think you can have without the from clause or the other way around, okay? You have to have select and from clause, non-negotiable. Now, the spelling of the table names must match the spelling of the table name in the database, right? And also the column names. Now, when you write it in generally in SQL statement, if you put the column names in the lowercase, it will still recognize, right? Earlier, I showed you that column names are stored in the uppercase in the database, right? But in select statement, you're not gonna get syntax error if you put in the lowercase. It should not be, okay? Now, but you have to spell it right, you know? Like for example, if I misspell the name as N-O-M-E instead of N-A-M-E, right? I'm gonna get a syntax error because SQL does not know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Well, okay. So here is basically I'm gonna run. I like to do the hands-on part when I do this, show these queries. So here, this is a query. Well, take a look at it. And what I did for you, I indented it to make it easier to read. Well, here, this is a select, right? This query is doing the pattern matching because what I'm saying here, I want to select the category name and reviews text. Reviews text is one of the columns in a hotels table. So hotel category, name and reviews text from hotel review. Now here I want to see only where review rating of the post is neutral. And here I want to say the username, reviews username contains traveler. Why am I converting to uppercase? Because I don't care about how traveler spells. I don't care about the capitalization, right? So usually you do this, but what like is for pattern matching. And here this thing stands for any number of any characters, followed by the word traveler, followed by any number of any characters. And the statement ends with a semicolon, right? Because if you want to be able to run all queries, right, as a script, you have to put a semicolon at the end. But for now, let's run selected. Okay, so see this, the category is a hotel, and you've got the name, the hotel name, and this is a tweet, right, the text of the tweet. Okay, well, that's it. And here you just check in. Okay, so if I was going to debug this, I would probably put this column into the select list. Reviews username, I would probably add it to the select list to make sure that I'm in fact selecting reviews usernames that contain string travelers, okay? Just keep that in mind. And I would probably put reviews rating just to check, to test the query, to make sure that I'm not selecting what it should not be, okay? Now, well, what distinct does, it's gonna list distinct values. Like for example, well, this is what you should do with your data. You need to check the values, what values of the sentiment you have before you start the analysis, because sometimes there could be negative, positive, and neutral, or sometimes there could be something like slightly negative, slightly positive, you know. So let's see what we have here. Here we have this negative, neutral, positive, slightly negative, slightly positive. That's what we have in this data, okay? Now, here, well, here we're getting, this is getting a little bit more complicated, but it's not complicated yet. I want to know how many times each hotel is mentioned, right? How do we solve this problem? We have to list the hotel name, right? Now here we have to count. But here, well, I'm gonna put the name because, well, if I do count star, then think about what's gonna happen to the nulls, right? Always think about what's gonna happen to the nulls. But well, let's do it this way, right? I'm gonna count this, but then category I want to limit to hotel and group by name, right? Because I want to know how many times each hotel is mentioned. So what are the counts for? The counts are for the hotel, right? But if I was going to put more columns in here about the hotel, right? If I was going to put more non-aggregate columns here, I would have to list them in here as well, okay? So any non-aggregate columns that are listed in the select clause should also appear in the group by clause. You're going to be 99.5% correct if you follow this. So anything that does not have count, sum, and average, right, that appears in a select clause, also have to be put in a group by clause when you have these aggregations. And you can have you can have as many aggregate functions as you want in the select clause. Okay, just keep that in mind, and you will see example more. Okay, now well here you see this. It shows you how many times each hotel mentions, but the thing is, your query result third returns more than just 5 rows. Let me see. I'm clicking on more, and you're gonna see that. See this? Well, I'm getting a lot of rows, right? So what can we do in here? Let's say I'm gonna refine my business rules, and I'm gonna say I want the hotels only that were mentioned more than 400 times. So how are you gonna do that? Okay, well, you're not filtering the individual hotel tweets, right? You're not filtering individual posts about the hotel, but you're rather filtering the hotel as a whole. If it was mentioned 400 times or less, right? Because we want to only keep the hotels that were mentioned more than 400 times. Well, here it's a having clause because you're not eliminating the individual rows, right? So here I'm just going to do this run selected, and let's see what's going to happen now. Well, here, see this right now, my output, I have only 3 hotels, right? Because only 3 were mentioned. Okay. Now what we're gonna do here, this is a little bit complicated because you have to deal with some of the missing values, right? Well, but let's do this. Let's say here, let's see what's gonna happen. Let's run this first. Run selected. Well, here it's gonna tell you how many times you have each sentiment, right? But just to be safe here, I said where review rating is not null, right? Because it's highly possible that you might have some records with unknown review rating. So what I did now, I commented that out. Let's see if this is the case here. Run selected. Let me see. Oh, you see this now it's not working. It's because, okay, I see. Now it's not gonna work because it does not like the comment inside. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do Control X, right? So let's run this one. Run selected. Let's see if it does. Okay, it did now. Okay, look at this. Well, in this case, let's see if there are any missing values. Yes. Well, see this? Sometimes there is no sentiment value specified, and in this case, it gave me 0 because of how I counted it. I put it in here, count retweet ratings, right? So that's why it did not count the missing values, right? So, okay, Control Z. Okay, so here is the query, but let me show you something else. I'm gonna do it differently. Now I'm gonna take this, right? I'm gonna take this, and in here I'm gonna put count star, right? Count star, and I'm going to delete this line in here. You're gonna see what's gonna happen. So the way you write the query, right? It's gonna be the way the missing values are handled depend on how you write your query, because over here, see this? Here it's showing you how many tweets don't have a sentiment, right? So the number is here. So remember this here. Whenever you have this count star, right? It will count the missing values. It will treat the missing values, of course, they will be treated as a separate category, right? And will also, when you have count star, it will do the count. It will not skip the missing. It will count the missing values, okay? While if you do it this way, it will not count the missing values, okay? Just remember that. So there is a difference between how you count, right? And what I did was I removed this where clause because since it's counting the missing values, I want to see what it's actually showing, okay? Oops. For some unknown reason, it's showing the videos. I don't want this. how do I, okay. Anyway, if anybody sharing the video, camera, webcam, would you please turn off because it's taking a lot of bandwidth. Okay. Now here, okay. So this was about the missing values, right? I showed you missing values. Here, well, this is gonna be, see, here, this is what I'm doing. I want to change, I want to say, let's make this, let's say display unknown. If the sentiment is missing, I want to do unknown. So here it's an NVL function. In the DB2, and in some platforms it's coalesce. Well, here it's NVL. What we're doing is that we're gonna take the review rating, and if it's missing, we're gonna display unknown. I'm doing almost exactly what I was doing here, except for I want to treat missing values as unknown. Remember that in earlier courses, we talked about that we can have like a value that we use to represent the missing values. Remember that? We talked about you may skip the rows that have a missing value, which was I did above, or you may still display how many tweets have unknown sentiment, right? You may still display it. Well, and now instead of the like see this, now I have this, it says unknown, right? And I'm gonna click on more, and it's gonna show me all of these things here, okay? Well, I'm just doing nothing but showing unknown. The reason I'm doing it here because you have some missing values in your assignment 3 data, okay? So, well, this is gonna be a challenge. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is, let me go back to slides. I want to build the table where I have one row per hotel, one row per hotel, and in here, well, see this one row, and then I have a column that shows how many are positive, how many are slightly positive, neutral, slightly negative, negative, unknown, and the total, right? I want to do something like this. Okay, so how do I do this? Well, first of all, before you do any counts, just think of it this way. Let's sort of think of it as a dummy columns. I'm gonna have the column called positive, slightly positive, neutral, slightly negative, etc. So if the tweet sentiment is positive, I'm gonna set positive to 1 and the rest of the columns to 0, right? Remember the case statements? And also, please remember in your earlier assignment, you had a similar exercise where you were asked to list one row, you had a department, and then you listed how many people left, how many people stayed, and total number of employees. Do you remember? The only difference that in there, the column that stores if person left or stayed, it had value 0 or and 1. In here, we don't have value 0 and 1, so we have to be a little bit creative here, okay? And this is the problem solving part. You may not find exact question online, so I need you to pay undivided attention, okay? So let's see how we set up this. This is a preparation query. This is a preparation, right? Let's see what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna just run this. Okay, so where is it? Run selected, I'm just running this. Well, this is, what I'm doing is this right now. Oops, let me see, I'm gonna click on more. Look, this is what you need to do to start with. Oops, it's loading. I want to list something like this. I want to list the tweet. This is the hotel name. Well, for each tweet, I list this. I have this, right? This is a name. This is just for checking, right? I list the rating is slightly positive. If it's slightly positive, look, I'm creating these columns. Remember, your query may have calculated columns. So if I'm creating these columns here, if it is slightly positive, then I set slightly positive to 1. If it's negative, then I set negative to 1. I have a bunch of case statements, right? So this is a preparation. So how would I know how many positive posts I have per hotel? How would I know that? just think about it. What's gonna happen? What can I do to this column over here to determine the number of positive posts per hotel? What can I do to this column? Just think about it. If the tweet is positive here, right? The value of this column is a 1, right? And I know the hotel name. How would I do this? Don't I need to take the sum? What happens if I take the sum of this column and do group by hotel name? It's gonna give me the number of positive, right? The number of positive postings for this hotel, right? And I'm gonna do the same thing here. I would have to do the sum on each of these, except for the last, oh, I'm not showing the total right now. I'm not showing the total right now. This is just the preparation. I'm just gonna say, okay, let's have those dummy columns. If the sentiment is positive, then we set the dummy column to 1, right? And if the sentiment is negative, then we set the negative to 1. This is just the preparation, right? Suppose that you have this, right? You're not gonna have review rating anymore. This is just to prepare. Now we're gonna look at the actual query. This is the actual query, okay? You take what you had in there, you're gonna throw away the sentiment column, you're gonna add the sums, right? And you're gonna put the group by, you're grouping by the name, okay? And count is gonna just give you the total, okay? This is just the total number of posts per hotel name. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna run this query, right? This is a final query, and run selected. Well, another thing is, so let's see, let's look more. In this case, do we have a missing ones? No, we don't, right? We don't have. But what's going on? What I'm doing in the sorting part is this nulls last. It means that if I have some kind of like tweet with unknown hotel name, I want to list them last. That's what nulls last means. So when you're sorting it, right, you're sorting the column, and if the column has missing values, you want to list them last. So that's what nulls last does. Okay. But well, this you may need to look at it again. But from my experience as a developer, a query like this, well, it was not just exactly like this. There were a bunch of joins, multiple tables, but something along this line made me employee of the month before. So that made the difference in my life. So hopefully it will make a difference in your life. So keep a copy of this code, right? Well, it's not going to be just a single table. It's going to be at least like 20 tables, maybe. In a join, there's going to be more stuff, but more likely an employer will ask, I want to have 1 line per hotel and I want to do all these counts, right? But here, assumption is that you know the values in advance. If you did not, then you would have to do something called cross-tab report. But don't worry about it right now, okay? But yes, you would need to do something like a cross-tab or matrix type of report. Okay, now here, well, see here, this is just another demonstration of gonna happen with null. Okay, well, when this is null, let's see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna do run selecting. Well, this is just showing me this. Look at this. If I have null, do you see this? I have a separate row, but it shows me 0 because the way I'm counting in here, it ignores the missing values, right? So this is the way I'm counting here, I'm ignoring the missing values. But the way I'm doing here, well, I'm counting a little bit different here. I can have count star or I can have count 1, right? So just do here. Okay, so here, this is different. Well, this is a select statement with 2 grouping columns. Okay, this is different SQL statement. And here I'm doing count 1, which is also another way to do it, right? Well, this will gonna do, it will count the number of ratings of each sentiment per province. So see this, I'm listing the province, and then I'm gonna list the review rating. And here, I'm just counting how many posts I have, right? So this is, remember that you had ungraded exercise before, where you did 2 columns and a count, right? So see here, I had to list both columns in a select and a group by, okay? And here, this is more, oh, this is a subquery. So now we need to return to the slides, right? Well, I went over all of this, but see, I like to do the hand-on. That was better. So now we're here. What is a subquery? Subquery is a query inside a query. It may return a single value. Like for example, I want to list students who get a grade above average, right? I don't know what an average is, so I need to have a subquery that will select what an average is, right? And then I'm gonna use that inside of the main query in a where clause. I'm gonna say where grade the student got is greater than, and then I'm gonna have a subquery that selects the average, right? This could also be a value list, right? Like for example, somebody who lives in a city with a COVID positivity rate below certain percentage, right? So first my subquery is going to select the list of cities, and the main query is going to have something like in, right? In operator, something like that. In select, or it could be a virtual table. In fact, that query that I just showed you, the complex query, you could do it as a virtual table, right? You could you could have a subquery that selects those preparation columns that we looked at, and then you can have an outer query that does the aggregation, right? So virtual table, usually you put it in a from clause, right? Or it could be something like a view, if you will, right? In general, you can place subquery in select from where and having clause of the query. If any of you believe that you can put the subquery in an order by or in a group by, I would like to see a working example. Okay? If any of you think that you can put the subquery in a group by clause or in an order by clause, I need to see a working example because I know that you cannot. Okay? Now, here it is. Well, and I'm gonna look at it right now more, but well, I'm gonna run it. But see this here? Well, here basically you want to list the provinces. Here you want to list a list of provinces that have at least one positive rating, right? And in here you just want to list the province if they do not have at least one positive rating, right? So here I want to know which provinces do not have at least one positive rating. How do I do it? I need to know which provinces have it, right? And then I just say it, they're not on the list that have it. So here, what do I have? This is my subquery, which returns what? A list, right? And then I just do not on the list, something like that, right? But you need to be careful because sometimes not in could be slow. Well, not in your case, not in this case, this table is not large enough. But when the tables are huge, not in could be slow because it's looking up each value at once, right? Then you would need to do something called join. So yes, but don't worry about joins here, okay? But on your back of your mind, keep that, just remember that not in could be slow for the huge data sets, okay? Just for the work environment. And I'm gonna run it, but I'm just showing you because I would like you to see the picture here too, Well, sometimes here you just finding the average number of positive posts, right, per hotel. See this? And now, well, here, see this, the inner query, what it does is it finds, it takes the hotel name, right, and it counts how many positive posts are in each for each hotel, right? And then it takes this little table, it's a little table that it takes as an input, and then it computes the average number of posts per hotel. Average number of posts per hotel. That's what it's doing, right? So how do you find the average number of positive posts? You have to have the inner query, which returns a little table, right? And it's going to return the name, right? And the count. And then you take this as an input and you do the average. So this is one example of the subquery, right? And then you can make it further. I want to see the hotels that have this above average, right? So see this? Why do we put the subquery in a having clause? Think about it. Well, because, well, what I'm doing here, it builds on this. This piece here finds the average number of positive posts per hotel, right? So you have two levels of the subquery. Now I want to list the hotel that have an average number of, that have a number of positive posts above 25, right? So if I was going to calculate how many posts with a positive count are per hotel, right? I would have to have what? The group by clause, right? And if I say explicitly that I want to list the hotels that have more than 25 positive posts, I would have to put 25 in a having clause, right? I could do this. I could, instead of all this block here, I could put 25, right? Well, the problem is I want the query to be dynamic. I don't care about the actual number. I don't want to be rerunning this all the time and editing this query, right? So instead of 25, in parentheses, I put that big chunk of code that I have here, right? Big chunk of code that I have here, where I figure out what an average is. So see this? This is a 3 levels of subqueries. I don't want you to be scared about it, but it will make sense. So the way you need to do it, you need to break down the problem. First part, you want to find out how many positive posts are per each hotel. Well, just forget about the averages, forget about everything. Just do the count first, okay? So you got this. Then take this as an input and figure out the average, right? Then you go back to this query and just forget about the subquery. Suppose that we know that the average is 25. So how would you do the problem if you know that the average is 25? You would just put 25 in the having clause, right? Now, if I don't know what the average is, you would have to put this block, right? And I believe I'm missing a couple closing parentheses, okay? But this is just a screenshot. I'm just showing you the plugin part in here, okay? I would need to adjust this. Oh, here we go. See, so this is here. There are two closing parentheses, okay? And you want to indent the code because that will help you see if you're missing any parentheses. And it's also more readable for you or any developer who's going to have to pick up your work in the future, right? So, well, you want to indent the code. If the code, everything is in a single line, it's very difficult to troubleshoot, okay? Now, let's see what I have in my code here. Yeah, because, well, these queries are advanced and you ask to have advanced, right? Well, here what I have is slightly different, but it's the same. Oh, here it is. This is just breaking down, well, this is just a little bit different, but it's a similar idea. This lists in the provinces that do not have any positive reviews, right? So subquery finds out which provinces have positive, right? And then it has to be not on that list, right? Easy. This is easy, but then it makes it more harder and harder, right? So I want to say n categories equals hotels, right? But why it's not having here? It's because here I'm filtering out the individual rows. I'm not filtering the hotels here, right? So just run selected, right? And it's gonna look like this, right? I'm not filtering out the hotels in here, okay? Well, and this will give you the average number of positive posts per hotel, right? Remember, we just went over that query. I broke it down for you, right? And this is how you should do it. you need to work the problem. You need to break it down. Otherwise, it's very difficult to come up with a solution like this, okay? So if you're told, I want to know which hotels have above average number of positive something posts, right? So first of all, you might be asking, how do I find out what's an average number of positive posts, right? So you have to break the problem down. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? And the semicolon here. Okay, so let's run this, run selected. Well, it did not error before, oops, okay, no. I put it at the wrong spot here, that's right. Okay, there we go. So now let's run this, run selected. Okay, there we go. Well, here it is. So it's listing, giving me the hotels. And also I have to see, well, how do I test my work? I'm going just to spot check to make sure that I don't have any hotel listed here with the count below 25, right? If I see something here below 25, then I need to go back to the drawing board, right? To revisit my query and troubleshoot for the error. So you want to check yourself, always test, or sometimes you even write the code to test the code. So that's normal, okay? So now we went over this complex stuff. RStudio, thanks goodness they took that out. Your environment should be selecting the correct environment consumes 1 capacity unit per hour. Thanks goodness. At some point, there used to be 3 environments listed. But just in case, I have the screenshot here. So do not use anything else if it appears. Just use this one, the first one. Okay? Because anybody who used the other 2, they ran out in hours in no time. So I did not delete the screenshots too. Well, this is a little bit explanation of some of the R code. Well, here is just going to list the tables in your database schema. It's important because sometimes when especially it happened last semester, because for assignment 3, I told you to go ahead and use tab section of the script for the airline sentiment, right? You're going to use the tab section with credentials, just that piece. You might be wondering, wait a minute, does Yelena have her table for assignment 3 in there? And what exactly did she call the table? So how do you find out this answer yourself? If you run this code, either show tables, this one, this command is going to give you the tables that you have in the schema, right? And you're going to know if the table I'm talking about or the table for assignment 3 is there, right? This is how you're going to know. There are only 3 tables on that account, 3 or 4, something like that, 3 or 4. So you're going to know just by running this command. It should be easy to figure out, right? But this one is just showing you that if you know that the table name contains air, right? If the account has way a lot of tables, right? If account has maybe 200 tables, and you know that your table name contains air, this is how you can run this command here, okay? And this is just when you know the table name. You can check if the table exists. Oh, okay, no problem. No problem. Okay. Now, well, this is you check if the table exists. Okay. Either df command is the command you use to run the query. Sometimes you use this command to create a data frame, or sometimes you can just output the code, right? Or if you're just doing some testing, etc. Okay. And well, this is for you just to keep in the back of your mind that you can run this data. The dictionary queries can be run from R as well. But what you'll need to do is you need to put the creator. This is going to be your schema name, okay? You can run this query from R environment. That's what I'm saying, basically. Okay, now, another thing is that sometimes you have trouble with launching RStudio if you have too many images, right? So see, you need to, in RStudio, pay attention to the disk usage. If this becomes yellow, then you need to go back to your environment and you want to delete what you no longer need, like matrices, they take a lot of space, okay? And also images, if you have a lot of visualizations, they take up the disk space. So kindly take a screenshot and say what you need on your local PC and delete, right? Well, I got into that bad habit at some point. So you want to delete the plot that you don't need. Okay. Well, here I just want to comment on it a little bit. In your sentiment analysis tutorial, you have something mentioned about the network of terms, right? But what was done for this semester, a couple lines of code were added, but not discussed in the document. But the whole idea is also the community detection, right? So in this case, you're looking at the airline tweets, right? And you also want to look at which terms appear together, right? So here, what it's doing, it's visualizing the maximum subsets of terms. If you're gonna use the networks of term method in your assignment for your assignment 3, you want to look at this, right? You want to look at the maximum subsets of terms that appear together in the same document. Here there are 3, okay? Well, because how else you're gonna analyze it? You have to look at the subsets of terms, and I believe this should be in your readings also. I think this should be, okay? Oh, and you also got another present. You got the clustering. You got the clustering implementation. Now here, I talked about this in a video, but this is a example what's happened. If you used if you're in Cloud Park instead of IBM Cloud, you're not gonna see the page for credentials, okay? If you see this instead of option to add credentials, if you don't see credentials, then you are on a Cloud Park, you're not on the IBM Cloud. You need to go to IBM Cloud, or you can just, there should be an option to manage an IBM Cloud, okay? So if you don't see the credentials, you're in the wrong place, okay? Well, here, this is just some of the issues that you may run into. This is an invalid username and password. Well, you should not, well, no, ignore this sentence, okay? Please ignore this sentence for this semester. Ignore, okay? But in general, you're gonna get this error message if you're using incorrect username and password. But for this semester only, you're asked to use the credentials that I gave you. So, okay. Now, well, the issue here is that I was running the code. I loaded the data into the text, and suddenly I'm not getting the expected result. Well, here you need to select to make sure that the query is correct. In here, the query, to make sure that it's selecting the data correctly, okay? In this case, it's not selecting anything because the column name text is misspelled as text. So here I have an error in a SQL. As a consequence, I'm not selecting anything. And here, when I try to check the number of rows, it returns no. So in other words, when you have something unexpected, you have to check the query. One way to check the query is to go back to DB2, right? And rerun the query. That's one way, right? You want to make sure that the query is correct, in other words. Okay. Okay. Well, and this one, see here, okay. Basically, in R, you may have more than one package that has a method with the same name. In a priori rules method, in a priori rules package, there is a inspect method that allows you to see first 15 rules. There is also inspect method in a text mining, right, to see the content of the first 15 documents. So when you have both packages loaded in the memory, for R to know which method you're calling, you need to qualify the method name with the package name. So here, for instance, a rules inspect, right? This will ensure that I'm calling the inspect function from a rule package, okay? All right, I mean, it's just something for you to remember, because I've had students who get these similar errors. I've seen these errors a lot, and it's because you having more than one package with the same method. You need to qualify the method name with the package name. And if you're not sure, it's always good to qualify, okay? Always good idea to do that. All right, and this is just showing you more on how to do the troubleshooting. See, like I misspelled something, right? That's why my query was throwing an error. So when I take my query to DB2, I see that I can compare the spelling. This is what I spelled and this is what the actual spelling is, right? And well, this is just one way to do it. Sometimes if I have a query, I'm trying to run a query in R, if the query is not working, I would go to DB2 and troubleshoot it there. Well, and one thing is that DB2 does not consume hours, does it? So, and this is another error. It's because I misspelled the table name, okay? So I'll just give you some examples of the errors. And here, okay, I don't know how many times I need to tell people, but you need to run the Q command to exit RStudio. If you don't do this, you will have to wait. Well, it is what it is. I don't have admin access and I cannot kill the orphan RStudio session. Okay, I cannot kill orphan R sessions. So, you know, and sorry, and sometimes it could also consume 2 hours, for 2 hours and run consume capacity hours. I don't know exactly how it's now, but it may. Now, please save all code on your PC. Do yourself a favor. Use, I would recommend Notepad or TextPad or other any, well, you can use, well, any good editor that you have, but it has to be the not rich text editor, but just text editor. Notepad, there is also Notepad++ is free. TextPad is not free, but it's one of the options if you have it, you know. You have to work on, you must work on the ungraded exercises to get the maximum benefit. First of all, there could be some questions on a graded quiz that are based on the output from ungraded exercises. It's a fair game, isn't it? Okay. And now here, you want to submit the Salesforce cases. I'm gonna delete this one because you're not posting the questions in the question and answer anymore. You're going to be submitting cases. You're going to follow instructions and remember this quote: the best way to get something done is to begin, right? You really have to begin, and then, you know, you're gonna get it done. If you have not started, you know what it means, right? This is just some useful arguments, okay? That's it, okay? So now I talked for long enough to almost get sore throat. Well, not yet, but anyway, questions? People, questions? This is questions and answers session. And Professor Ozan, do you have anything to add to what I said? I said a lot. Professor Ozan, you still here? Okay. People, questions? It's time for questions. If there are no questions, then you're going to lose this opportunity for right now. Well, if you submit the Salesforce case, I'm going to work with you, of course. Okay. So I expect to see a lot of cases this coming weekend and the weekend after, right? Okay, so if there are no more comments, if there are no more questions, we are going to call it a night. And my 2 words of advice to everybody is good luck, okay? You know, oh wait, missy chat. Oh, okay, most welcome, guys, most welcome. So I'm gonna stop recording here. Stop recording. Okay.